want to do what I did last time and read before I start teaching. I want to read to you Daniel. Gotta find it on my Bible. Actually, I want to get the New King James is where I'll read it from, and I'm going to read Daniel chapter 2. There we go. 49 verses. And in the second year of the reign of Nebuchadnezzar, Nebuchadnezzar dreamed dreams, wherewith his spirit was troubled, and his sleep brake from him. Then the king commanded to call the magicians and the astrologers and the sorcerers and the Chaldeans, for to show the king his dreams. So they came and stood before the king. And the king said unto them, I have dreamed the dream, and my spirit was troubled to know the dream. Then spoke the Chaldeans to the king in Syriac, O king, live. I'm reading the old King James. Okay. O king, live forever. Tell thy servants the dream, and we will show the interpretation. The king answered and said to the Chaldeans, the king is gone from me. If he will not make known unto me the dream with the interpretation thereof, you shall be cut in pieces, and your houses shall be made a dunghill. But if you shew the dream and the interpretation thereof, ye shall receive of me gifts and rewards and great honor. Therefore shew me the dream and the interpretation thereof. And they answered again and said, let the king tell his servants the dream, and we will shew the interpretation of it. The king answered and said, I know of certainty that ye would gain the time, because ye see the thing is gone from me. But if ye will not make known unto me the dream, there is but one decree for you. For you have prepared lying and corrupt words to speak before me, till the time be changed. Therefore tell me the dream, and I shall know that ye can shew me the interpretation thereof. The Chaldeans answered before the king and said, there's not a man upon the earth that can shew the king's matter. Therefore there is no king, lord, nor ruler that has such things as any musician or astrologer or Chaldean. And it is a rare thing that the king requireth. And there is none other that can shew it before the king except the gods, whose dwelling is not with flesh. For this cause the king was angry and very furious, and commanded to destroy all the wise men of Babylon. And the decree went forth that the wise men should be slain. And they sought Daniel and his fellows to be slain. Then Daniel answered with counsel and wisdom to Arioch, the captain of the king's guard, which was gone forth to slay the wise men of Babylon. And he answered and said to Arioch, the king's captain, why is the decree so hasty from the king? Then Arioch made the thing known to Daniel. And then Daniel went in and desired of the king that he would give him the time, and that he would shew the king the interpretation. Then Daniel went to his house and made the thing known to Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, his companions, that they would desire mercies of the God of heaven concerning this secret, that Daniel and his fellows should not perish with the rest of the wise men of Babylon. Then was the secret revealed unto Daniel in a night vision. Then Daniel blessed the God of heaven. Daniel answered and said, blessed be the name of God forever and ever, for wisdom and might are his. And he changeth the times and the seasons. He removeth kings and setteth up kings. He giveth wisdom unto the wise and knowledge to them that know understanding. He revealeth the deep and secret things. He knoweth what is in the darkness, and the light dwelleth with him. I thank thee and praise thee, O thou God of my fathers, who has given me wisdom and might, and has made known unto me now what we desired of thee. For thou hast now made known unto us the king's matter. Therefore Daniel went in unto Arioch, whom the king had ordained to destroy the wise men of Babylon. He went and said thus unto him, destroy not the wise men of Babylon. Bring me in before the king, and I will show unto the king the interpretation. Then Arioch brought in Daniel before the king in haste, and said thus unto him, I have found a man of the captives of Judah, that will make known unto the king the interpretation. The king answered and said to Daniel, whose name was Belteshazzar, Art thou able to make known unto me the dream which I have seen, and the interpretation thereof? Daniel answered in the presence of the king and said, The secret which the king hath demanded cannot the wise men, the astrologers, the magicians, the soothsayers show unto the king. But there is a God in heaven that reveals secrets, and maketh known to the king Nebuchadnezzar what shall be in the latter days. Thy dream and the visions of thy head upon thy bed are these. As for thee, O king, thy thoughts came into thy mind upon thy bed, what should come to pass hereafter. And he that revealeth secrets maketh known to thee what shall come to pass. But as for me, this secret is not revealed to me for any wisdom that I have more than any living, but for their sakes, that shall make known the interpretation to the king, and that thou mightest know the thoughts of thy heart. Thou, O king, sawest, and behold, a great image. This great image, whose brightness was excellent, stood before thee, and the form thereof was terrible. This image's head was of fine gold, his breast and his arms of silver, his belly and his thighs of brass, his legs of iron, his feet part of iron and part of clay. Thou sawest till a stone was cut out without hands, which smote the image upon his feet that were of iron and clay, and brake them to pieces. Then was the iron, the clay, and the brass, the silver, and the gold broken to pieces together, and became like the chaff of the summer threshing floors. And the wind carried them away, that no place was found for them. And the stone that smote the image became a great mountain, and it filled the whole earth. This is the dream, and we will tell the interpretation thereof before the king. Therefore, O king, art a king of kings, for the God of heaven hath given thee a kingdom, power, and strength, and glory. And wheresoever the children of men dwell, the beasts of the field and the fowls of the heaven hath he given into thine hand, and hath made thee ruler over them all. Thou art this head of gold. And after thee shall arise another kingdom, inferior to thee, and another third kingdom of brass, which shall bear rule over all the earth. And the fourth kingdom shall be strong as iron. For as much as iron breaketh in pieces and subdueth all things, and as iron that breaketh all these, shall it break in pieces and bruise. And whereas thou sawest the feet and toes, part of pottery's clay, and part of iron, and the kingdom shall be divided, but there shall be in it of the strength of the iron. For as much as thou sawest the iron mixed with miry clay, and as the toes of the feet were part of iron and part of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. And whereas thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, and they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with clay. And in the days of these kings shall the God of heaven set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed. And the kingdom shall not be left to other people, but it shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and it shall stand forever. For as much as thou sawest that the stone was cut out of the mountain without hands, and that it brake in pieces the iron, the brass, the clay, the silver, and the gold, the great God hath made known to the king what shall come to pass hereafter. And the dream is certain, and the interpretation thereof sure. Then the king Nebuchadnezzar fell upon his face and worshipped Daniel, and commanded that they should offer an oblation and sweet odors unto him. The king answered unto Daniel and said, Of a truth it is that your God is a God of gods, and a Lord of kings, and a revealer of secrets, seeing that thou couldst reveal this secret, Then the king made Daniel a great man and gave him many great gifts. They made him ruler over the whole province of Babylon and chief of the governors over all the wise men of Babylon. And then Daniel requested of the king, and he set Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego over the affairs of the province of Babylon. But Daniel sat in the gate of the king. That's a great chapter. That chapter is really key to understanding all of the, it's not the only, like you can't really get all of the Daniel's prophetic eschatological wisdom and insight from just chapter 2. You also need chapter 7 and chapter 8, really the rest of the book. But chapter 2 is the foundation of that. And it's a phenomenally, like, it's the basis. We're on page 3 of our notes. Praise the Lord. And I really appreciated, let me just say, Steve, what you shared about groups. There's along that line, there's a book by Chuck Pierce and Robert Heidler, Time to Advance, or Time to Advance or Prosper? Advance. And he gives things like that, like this is the month of this is the month of that. It'd be a really simple group to lead. You'd have fun. You'd get blessed. Weren't you blessed just listening to him? Yeah. That's the kind of stuff you'd get out of that. You'd be really blessed. All right, so we're picking it up with page 3. Last time we were here, we talked about this idea that there is a God who reveals secrets. That's on the end, in page 2, and he reveals mysteries or secrets, and that God has given to the church a gift whereby we can receive from God secrets or mysteries, and that is the gift of speaking in tongues. And so we talked about that, and we're going to pick it up now on the bottom of page 3. He tells the king, you had visions in your head. Now, this is actually an unusual thing. The Sonsino, Jewish commentary, which is one of my favorite series, it says this is the only instance in the Bible where psychical, in other words, in the head experiences are associated with the head. The only instance in the Bible where something's going on in someone's head like that. Its usage here is probably to be accounted for by the act of seeing being connected with the origin of sight. The king has this vision in his head while he's sleeping, and it's unlike anything. So the actual experience, it's not just that he had this dream, but the way he had the dream was unusual. It's the only time the Bible does this. Going over to the top of page 4. Daniel says, thoughts came to your mind while you were on your bed. Okay, so the NIV, as your majesty was lying there, your mind turned to things to come. And so we come into this time of these dreams. Now, one of the things that as I'm looking at this that struck me as I was just thinking about speaking today on this is, if you go back and look at Acts chapter 2, Peter says, this is that which was spoken by the prophet Joel, saying in the last days. And then he says, your young men will see visions and your old men will dream dreams. He says, this is that which was spoken by the prophet Joel. But actually, he switched it. Because if you go back to Joel, and you look at what Joel actually said, Joel didn't say that. Joel said, your old men will see dreams and your young men will see visions. Now, the old person is still seeing the same thing, and the young person is still seeing the same thing, but he flipped the order. And the fact that the Holy Spirit had him flip it, obviously, or it's not Bible, right? So you might wonder why. And I'm sure there's other reasons. But for me, here's how I see it. Everything up to the crucifixion and the resurrection, everything before that points to that event. And everything after that event points back to that event. It is the crux of all of creation. Jesus Christ crucified from the foundations of the world. The Lord knew that his son would go to that cross and rise from the dead, and he knew it before he said, let there be light. And there has never, that plan was not something that God added when Adam and Eve fell, and it is not something that got tweaked. It actually says in Revelation 13:8 and 17:8, it says, whose names were written in the Lamb's book of life before the foundations of the world. The Lord knew every single sin you would ever commit before he said, let there be light. Every one of them. He saved you knowing every one of them. You have never surprised him with any failure you've ever done. That doesn't mean he made you choose him. No, those whom he foreknew, he preordained to be conformed to the image of his Son. He just knew because he knows everything. And because he knew you would receive him, therefore, he ordained things in your life. He just knew you would receive him. You didn't surprise him. He knew somebody else would reject him. They didn't surprise him. He does not make it happen. He just knows. Everything points to that moment right there. And that's why the order, I think, is switched between the young men and the old men. So he's on his bed. There, on your bed, what would come to pass, the thoughts of your head. And Daniel is telling the king that he had been thinking about the future while he's still awake. He's telling him what he's thinking. Now, it's very common to have dreams that relate to whatever it is we're thinking about when we go to bed, right? And so it was for Nebuchadnezzar. Now, isn't it interesting that God spoke to Nebuchadnezzar through his bedtime anxiety? Sometimes we will jokingly say, maybe the dream wasn't of God. Maybe it was just the pizza you had just before you went to bed. But Nebuchadnezzar's experience tells us that our own natural anxieties do not necessarily rule out the possibility that there may also be a spiritual side to something that started out as just a pizza dream. That is the story of Nebuchadnezzar. Even though Nebuchadnezzar's dream told of God's plan for man, the dream also reflects the king's thoughts. And so when it comes to dreams, a natural explanation does not necessarily rule out a spiritual meaning. God uses the things of this world to speak to his people. Some interesting things from ArtScroll. ArtScroll is even more orthodox than Sonsino, if you can do that. They do it. A quote from there, a multitude of information is continuously being transmitted to this world from above, but it is only received by those who make some preparation to receive it. The king, in his preoccupation with the worry of what would happen after him, had been in the right frame of mind to receive this dream. Now, regarding that statement, it is true that we will receive more from the Lord if we steward our minds, if we prepare our minds to hear from God. We're going to get more from him. We think about stewarding our finances. What about stewarding our mind? If you steward your finances, you're going to end up with more finances. Well, on Judgment Day, we'll have to give account for how we stewarded our finances. Far more significant, far bigger deal on Judgment Day, we'll give account for how we stewarded our mind. It's a whole lot more important than our money. Then ArtScroll has some comments that we Christians might struggle with, such as this one. Even in truthful dreams, which are revealed from above, as in the case of Nebuchadnezzar, a person is shown only that to which he has already given thought. Now that is a challenging thought for Christians right there. The gift of tongues is a New Testament spiritual gift which takes the believer beyond their understanding. Yet we should not forget that when Christians actually speak in tongues, they are actually leaning into receiving revelation from God. So even tongues support that statement from ArtScroll. We only give things to which are given things when we have leaned into God. There's some truth there. Certainly, I'm going over to page 5. Certainly, revelation from God is progressive, built line upon line, so that God's people are called to live with the current revealed truth. This is, if you look at 2 Peter chapter 1, verse 12. For this reason I will not be negligent to remind you always of these things, though you know and are established in present truth. Well, we have truth after the death, burial, and resurrection that the world didn't have before that. The angels didn't know. The demons didn't know. There is a progressive revelation. Isaiah 28:10, for precept must be upon precept, precept upon precept, line upon line, here a little, there a little. And what did Art Scroll say? It says, truly, divinely revealed dreams appear only within the framework of the person's own thoughts. Just as the visual side of the dream is a combination of images already present in the mind. They're already there. So are the underlying ideas, that is, the interpretation of the ideas, already present in the mind. The novelty lies in the particular combination of images and ideas as arranged in the dream. A proof of this is in that they neither show a person a golden tree nor an elephant going through the eye of a needle. I suppose they could, right? But it'd be really unusual. Dreams, such as Nebuchadnezzar's, can thus serve as vehicles for transmission of messages from above, but the materials used to spell out the messages are the images and the ideas already present in the receiver's mind. We might not like everything that Art Scroll said there, but consider this. The revelation of Daniel chapter 7 is built upon the revelation of Daniel chapter 2. And the revelation of Daniel chapter 8 is built upon the revelation of Daniel chapter 7, which is built upon Daniel chapter 2. And the revelation of Daniel chapter 11 is built upon the revelation of Daniel 9, 8, 7, and 2. There actually might be a lot there, this idea that we maybe need to really think about what we're planting here. By developing our minds, we increase our ability to receive revelatory dreams. This does not mean that more naturally intelligent minds will necessarily receive more revelatory dreams. Doesn't mean that at all. But it does mean that when we steward our minds are more open to receive revelation from God, and in many ways, that includes dreams. Simply because God can talk through Balaam's donkey is no excuse for a lazy mind. That's the point. I gave you there, you'd have to type it out exactly. I copy and pasted and created a document in Box, and that is a 21-page excerpt from the Talmud on dreams. You could literally just go there, type. If you get one letter wrong, it ain't going to work. Okay? So I don't know how to do it other than that. So there you go. And to be frank, a lot of it is just nutty, crazy, insane stuff. What is that? Okay? So, but it's still, I read it. It was interesting. Here's a couple of quotes that I thought were sort of interesting. Whoever sleeps for 7 successive days without seeing a dream is called wicked. I guess we all qualify. I've had a lot of dreams, but certainly I've had a lot of 7-day periods. I don't know, actually. I don't know. He who has a dream and is upset about it should go and seek the interpretation of the dream before 3 people. Obviously, Talmudic Judaism is extremely open to dreams. But I will tell you that I personally know of some traditional, non-Messianic Jews who are Orthodox that do not believe that God gives dreams like that anymore. I don't have an answer for you. I just know that's true. Before I go to the next page, I really want to give you an opportunity for a few moments to be thinking about dreams that you've had so that this can become something that is actually helpful for you. So I was thinking about how do I do that? And so I'll just tell you some dreams I've had. I don't know how long I'll do this. I wrote down a bunch of them. As a child, and some of these, if I had a dream that I thought I needed help with, I would not tell it to you now. Okay, there's no way I would. So I'm not looking for any, I'm not looking for that, okay? But these are things I've had and I've processed, and I'm very comfortable with. I'm just sharing that with you. I had a recurring dream as a young child. My parents divorced when I was 3. I saw my dad for the last time when I was 5. So you can imagine what my home was like. And I had this recurring dream in which I was like on a flying carpet, but it was more like a mattress, a large kind of mattress, maybe the size of from there to there, square. So 4 chairs and like that. I'm standing on it, and my dad's on it, and the wind's blowing, and I can see his hair blowing, and the wind's blowing me, and it's like pushing me off the platform. And we're high, right? And I'm trying not to get blown off the platform because we're really high. And I do get blown off the platform. I'm holding on, and then eventually I fall. And so this recurring dream, I was falling. That might be my earliest dream. Now, that's an interesting thought when I say that might be my earliest dream. It's certainly not my earliest memory, but I'm going to tie that to early memories for a moment here. This might help you. Adlerian psychology, says this, and I think there's a lot of value to this. What is your earliest memory? I'm not talking about dreams. Your earliest memory. And Adler, who's a younger companion to Freud, the same age, and Adler said this, there's a reason you remember that. There's a reason that memory is your earliest memory. It's not the first thing that happened in your life. Why do you remember that? That's interesting. Now, Adler talked a little bit about dreams. Not as near as much as Carl Jung did. Carl Jung talked more about dreams than any psychologist. But Adler is very adaptable to Christianity, if you're wondering. Jung is kind of sometimes. But I want to tie that to this thought. What's your earliest dream? Why do you remember that? Adler didn't say that, but I'm pulling those two thoughts together for you. Why would you remember that dream? That's significant. I have another dream. If that's not my earliest dream, then this would be. This very well might be. I'm standing out in a field, like green grass, whatever, and there's some people out in the field. It's a large field, and these little pillow mattresses that are no bigger than maybe two chairs by 2 chairs are coming out of the ground, and they're coming up out of the ground under people, and they're riding them up to heaven. And this pillow, mattress, whatever it is, it's white, comes out of the ground underneath me and starts to lift me up and take me up. Well, I just jumped off that thing really quick. And then another one came up out of the ground and right under me and started to bring me up, right? And so it was a recurring dream. Now, I think I know what that dream means now, but I had no idea when I was a young person because I had never even heard the word Jesus or Yeshua. All right, but that was a recurring dream. As a young Christian, I'm thinking through my life, through your life. Those were child dreams. When I first came to the Lord, I had a lot of dreams. I remember one dream I had where I'm a brand new Christian. I'm coming out of a real messed up life. And I'm walking with 2 friends, one on each side, and it's completely pitch black dark. You cannot see anything. You could not see your hand if you did this. But for some reason, I could see. They couldn't see anything, but I could see. And so we were like moving really carefully, really slowly, and I was leading these two friends walking in the darkness. I could see. Then a little bit later, I've had dreams. I had a recurring dream. I have no idea how many times I had a flying dream. Anybody have a dream where you could fly? The first time it happened, it was like, it like shocked me, and I was scared, silly. I had no control over this flying. I could fall. Like that seems to be a recurring thing in my dreams. I could fall. Like, what's gonna happen? And I probably had 100 of these, 50 of them at least. Okay? And over time, these flying dreams became like I would have more control. And I got to the place where in the dream, I actually could intentionally fly. And in some of them, I would fly over mountains and over, fly. And it went from being a fearful thing to being, wow, this is great. Something that was wonderful. I've had some spiritual warfare dreams. Okay, so the one that I had, it's not one dream, it's one theme, if you will. I had a theme that was a problem for me of lust. And in these dreams, I would have these very lustful experiences. And Donna would be up, like she'd wake up and praying, but she didn't know what was going on. Maybe she didn't know, but inside me, it felt like I was being drugged, like drugs. And it felt like from the inside, I was like being held to the bed. And it felt like there was a pressure pushing down on me from the outside, and I could not come out of it. Right? And that kind of situation, I don't know how many times I had that. I probably had that, I don't know, certainly at least 10 times, at least. I'm talking about as an adult, as a Christian man, not a man who's, and I just say, by God's grace, I've never had, by God's grace and only by his grace, I've never had a moral failure, by God's grace, and there's no other way to say it. So it wasn't because that was going on in my life. But there was this spiritual warfare, and it was intense. And one time, it was so, and I just, in the dream, in it, and I made myself, I like fought through, made myself kind of pray, and I got victory, and I've never had that happen again. It was a spirit, but I had, I don't, when I say 10 times, I don't know, it could have been 30 times. I don't know how many times I had it, but it never happened again. Then I had another kind of, then I had a one-time spiritual, dreams, one-time spiritual dream. I dreamed that there's this, like, some kind of a mess going on, and outside, and I'm sleeping, and there's police cars out in the front of our house, and all the lights and ambulances and all these flashing lights, and I wake up, and it might even have been that time. I don't remember if it was the same time as the last one of those. I don't remember. But I wake up, and I find out that what happened was at the same time as I was dreaming that, there were a couple of people on our board at our church in Wilmer, Minnesota, and a tornado had hit their house and wiped out, they were farmers, wiped out their annual income. So that was intense. I dreamed one time where the Lord showed me a lion that was about to pounce on my church. I called a couple wise people to help me understand, and it was pretty clear it was a particular person, to be careful. And the Lord protected us. One more thing I want to share. I just really trying to be transparent with you because I think this might help you. One time, I had this dream, and in this dream, I heard the Lord's voice. I mean, I don't know if I was hearing it on the inside or if I was hearing it with my ears. I don't know. Honestly don't. I have had probably 6 or 10 times where I know I've heard God's voice with my ears, not just my heart. But this time, I don't know what it was, and I was in a dream, and I had had this season of my life where I was struggling. If I told you there's a book that's called Every Man's Battle, I don't have to tell you what the theme of that book is, right? I literally don't have to tell you what the theme of that book is. So I'm in the season of my life, and that's I'm struggling with this. And in this dream, I heard God's voice, and he called me by name. His voice sounded exactly like my voice. It was that familiar. And he said, Greg, you've got to stop committing adultery. I know I heard him say that. I know it. I know you've had dreams. I'm not going to ask you to share them. I've poured out my yuck on you. But God does speak to us through dreams. He absolutely does. I'm on where am I going? I'm going to the top of page 6. I'm going to run out of time. I'll go just a few moments. I'll probably go to the end of page 7, call it. At the top of page 6, Daniel says, this hasn't been revealed to me because I have more wisdom. He is clearly demonstrating that he is a humble person. Well, the dream is revealed in verses 31 to 35, and he sees this great image. The phrase in English is repeated, great image, great image. The first time the word great, the second time the word great, it's a different word, so it's like this big image, this chief image. That's the picture there. Okay, and the word image, you know, it could mean a number of different things. Typically, when we think of image, we think of like an idol, but there's nothing about this image that is being worshipped. So it's probably not that case that it's an idol, but that's a possibility. The NIV translates it as statue. That's probably the best you could translate it as. That word is also translated like with in Daniel 3:19, the expression on the king's face. That word expression there is also that same word, the image of his face. But it probably means just a statue. But one of the things that is of interest to me of this is the idea that idols are images, even though it probably doesn't mean that in this passage. Y'all see that? Probably doesn't not mean it, but it often does mean it in the Bible. This word is often used of an idol that people worship. Okay? And when people, on page 7, when people worship idols, they are worshiping things that were made by people. Idols are made by people. In a sense, they are worshiping themselves. Babylon was a system that emphasized self-worship, the worship of humanity. Genesis 11:4. Come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower whose top will reach the heavens. This is Babylon. And make a name for ourselves. See, we want to worship humanity. Okay? Well, interesting application here. I don't know why I've never heard preachers talk about this. But idolatry, essentially pornography, is idolatry. That's what it is. And you can see that right in Romans chapter 1. Professing to be wise, they became fools and changed the glory of the incorruptible God into an image made like corruptible man and birds and four-footed animals and creeping things. Therefore God gave them up to uncleanness in the lusts of their hearts to dishonor their bodies among themselves, who exchanged the truth of God for a lie and worshipped and served the creature rather than the Creator, who is blessed forever. For this reason, God gave them up to vile passions. You can see imagery here. You can see images like idols. You can see pornography, sexual perversion. For even their women exchanged the natural use for what is against nature. Likewise also the men, leaving the natural use of the woman, burned in their lust one for another. Men with men, committing what is shameful and receiving themselves the penalty of their error, which was due. Mankind has always sought to worship itself, but this idea of pornography is this idea of of I'm going to worship the human form, that's pornography. And that's idolatry. Can you see that? And I think Paul makes that very clear there in Romans chapter 1. Now, mankind has always sought to worship itself. Judy, I really liked your testimony. And what you said, that Mike said to you as he was half asleep, he said, that's good for you. It's kind of, I thought, I even have that in my notes. Okay, isn't this really the situation in modern America? If it works for you, great. But don't tell me what's right for me, because I am God. That's really what that statement is saying. It works for you, but don't tell me what to do, because I will be like God in the Garden of Eden, having the right to tell what is good and evil. And only God can do that. And as soon as I do that, I've entered into the realm of idolatry. And what is the idol? It's me. And what God really wants from us is to make him God. And when we forsake the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and we pursue him, we get the tree of life. And that's what God wants for all of us, the tree of life.